before, well, too late.
Oh, we're live. We're live.
Hello, everybody. This is Eric, aka Wolfbitten, and tonight we're going to be talking about the racism of Darwin. Discussion and debate, atheism, evolution, Bible study, prophecy, and doctrine, social issues, and everything Christian. These are Hot Topics with your host Eric, aka Wolfbitten. Welcome.
So welcome. That was Wolfbitten. He's been rocked in his back.
And hello, how are you?
Hello.
Okay, I think that problem is resolved. Amen. So how you doing, brothers?
Yeah, all good.
Well, good. And for the audience out here today, we're going to be doing a little bit of a program on the racism of evolution, social Darwinism, and what did Darwin really think? What did the theory of evolution teach Darwin? I think this is a very interesting subject. And with me tonight, this is an open mic night, brothers and sisters. So anybody that would like to step in on this at any time, the link should be up top. Just feel free to drop right on in and join us. And with me is Brother St. Tommy. How you doing, St. Tommy?
Well, thank you. Thank you. Well,
it is awfully good to have you, brother. And thank you for bearing with my technical difficulties a minute ago. Thank you very much for that.
No problemo, my privilege.
Well, and with me also, joining myself and Tommy, is Brother Bill from Good News Gospel. Brother Bill Cuthbert. How you doing, brother?
All right, I'm doing all right.
It's always so good to have you. I want to welcome you both. You're both wonderful blessings to me personally. And I love having you on my little broadcasts, man. They're as humble as they are. You guys add tons to it, and I appreciate it. Thank you so very much. So, before I really get started, have you guys ever seen anything racist from Darwin or from evolutionists?
Well, certainly the textbooks are, because they've lesser species like the N word, and that's actually, that's the full title of the theory of evolution, and they usually forget that bit, don't they, when they give the full title of the Darwin's evolution, don't they?
Amen.
Yes, Brother Eric. Racialism, the theory that there's more than one human race, along with anti-racist racialisms, are they're just all over the place. It's stinking up our societies. This racialism, this saying, oh, our race is entitled, or your race is oppressing my race, or racialism. It's terrible. It's terrible, this racialism that's so pungent and so perhaps shallow.
I agree.
Yes.
I think people forget that we are mankind. When God created man, he created us to bring forth after our own kind. And everybody is a descendant of the Adam and Eve. And so we are mankind. We are the kind. We are that kind.
I confess, I am part ginger and part black. I just am. I'm a member of the human race.
Amen.
And other rascals just got to go around and calling me out for being something having to do with something. I don't know, as if I'm a different race or something.
Yes.
I don't like it. But anyway.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
I think
racialism.
I think a lot of people are going to be surprised this evening too. Would you believe me if I were to tell you that white supremacy Darwin was a white supremacist. You could call him the first nationwide, the first worldwide white supremacist that was advocated by, look at who advocates Darwinism now. Social Darwinism was advocated by the majority of the people in power throughout the world, and still going today. You can still see in many things today this thing going on with social Darwinism. I think you're going to be surprised by this, but let's look first.
I had no idea.
Yeah, I'll just put that up. I'll just put that in the chat.
Yes. Right here we have, of course, the most famous book written by Darwin on the origin of species by means of natural selection, on the preservation of favored races in the struggle for life. Now, believe it or not, I've had several conversations the last couple of days on this very thing with many atheists and evolutionists, and they all want to deny that Darwin was a white supremacist, that he was in fact a racist. But you're going to be surprised. Let me show you some of the stuff that comes of this. This is his second book, most famous book, called The Descent of Man. And let me tell you, if you read this book, you have to come to the conclusion, yes, mankind surely has descended. But we haven't descended from the monkey. We've descended from our morals, from where we should stand. This is one of the most racist, white supremacist books you could ever read in your life, I guarantee you, where he continually refers to as pretty much any race that isn't white as savage races. And we, of course, are the favored race. We are the most evolved race. We are the civilized race, as speaking as a white man. Now, that's not my opinion, folks. That's the opinion of Charles Darwin, as you're going to see.
Was he implying that people of non-color are disentitled?
Well, people
or entitled or something?
People of the white race are simply superior.
People of non-color are superior. That's what he was saying.
Yes. He referred to, believe it or not, he referred to black people and brown people and
high yellow. How about high yellow?
Yeah, and Australians. He referred to them as lower than monkeys. In one section, you're going to be surprised to see, he said, I'll bring that up to you in just a moment here. But this is a little bit of a diagram of what social Darwinism taught. Social Darwinism taught that here over on the left-hand side, we have the pretty white Greek face. We have the pretty round Greek skull. And then we have what he called the Negro race. And down below the Negro race, you see what he was implying is the shape of the Negro skull. As you can see, it might as well be a monkey skull. And then over on the far right, you see the chimpanzee and the chimpanzee skull. So in Darwin's mind's eye, and this is going to be hard for a lot of you to believe, but hang on, you're going to see the proof. In Darwin's mind's eye, the Negro race, the black race, the brown races, even the Australians, some of whom are Caucasian, were below the animals. Now,
well, all these images seem to be in black and white. Maybe that's a bit shallow, a wee bit shallow. I mean, to propose that any one of these humanoids, with the exception of the one on the right, is subhuman, oh, look, the one without color is subhuman, or the one that calls itself supreme or entitled is subhuman. That seems shallow.
That is rather shallow. That is very shallow indeed. Now, here we have a pretty world famous quote, although people try to bury this. This quote is right out in the open. It comes from his book, The Descent of Man. And could I get one of you brothers to read this for me if you can see it on your screen?
I volunteer. Pick me.
Okay, go right ahead, brother.
At some future period, not very distant as measured by centuries, the civilized races of man will almost certainly exterminate and replace throughout the world the racist races, no, the savage races. At the same time, the anthropomorphous apes, as Professor Schaaffhausen has remarked, will no doubt be exterminated. The break will then be rendered wider. It sounds like this guy's warmongering.
He is.
Rendered wider, for it will intervene between man in a more civilized state, as we may hope, than the Caucasian. Is that a yellow person? A Caucasian? No, never mind. Than the Caucasian and some apes as low as a baboon, instead of as present between the negro or Australian and the gorilla.
Wow, what a quote. What he's actually saying here, and I had several evolutionists try to deny that he even said this, but it's right there in his book, The Descent of Man, and I can turn right to it. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be bringing it up in another few moments here. He's saying at some future period, and not in the very distant future, the civilized races, which he later refers to here as Caucasian, the civilized races will almost certainly exterminate and replace throughout the world the savage races. In other words, we are going to wipe out. And he goes on to describe the savage races as the negro and the Australian. He also refers to them elsewhere as basically anyone that's not white. Latin Americans are part of the savage race. Jews are part of the savage race.
How about the Spaniards?
Yes, Spaniards are part of the savage race, savage races. So, but notice what he says here about the break will be rendered wider. Now, what he's talking about here is, according to evolutionists, we've always been looking for the missing link between the chimp and mankind. We've been looking for the missing link between apes and humans. Of course, some people would say humans are apes. However, what he's saying here is when we, the Caucasians, the favored race, the civilized race, when we exterminate and wipe out throughout the world the savage races, that the gap between Caucasians, baboons, and gorillas is going to be rendered even wider because we've wiped out the Negro and the Australian.
Was Adolf Hitler a racialist too?
Adolf Hitler bought into social Darwinism from the very beginning.
Oh, God.
And hence his extermination of the Jews, the Poles, all of his hatred for the blacks, the savage races. Hitler was doing everything he could do to help bring about this prophecy from Darwin. And that's exactly what he was working on, was wiping out the savage races and purifying the bloodstream of mankind, the bloodlines of mankind. So
I wonder if he believed he had subhuman heritage. Sorry.
That is rather ironic because his mother was a Jew.
That's what I heard. Something about that,
Yes.
Pure-blooded Jew. How about them apples? I thought all the human race is pure-blooded. I thought, but I don't know.
Yeah, she was definitely Jewish, and therefore of the savage races,
Wow.
according to Darwin and social Darwinism. Now, this is how did can you believe that somebody would actually come out and say this, though, as late as what this was roughly 1860?
God. I'll tell you, racialism, man, has a history. It
It's
sounds like that traditional evolution perspective is racialist.
yeah.
Yeah. God, how sad.
And we have a lot of things that he actually said here. I'm going to pull up a couple of other things that I can read to you. Bear with me just a moment here. Now, tell me, guys, if Christians were to talk like this today, how would the world see us?
I guess it depends on which subhuman race they are. Oh, that's right. There is no subhuman race. Oh,
Amen.
I guess it might depend on how they conceive of themselves. If they conceive of themselves as not a part of the human race, but a subsection of the human race, they might get away with it. If
Yeah.
they're an entitled part of the subsection of human race, or if they're a disentitled part. But anyway, yeah.
I'm going to pull up a article.
Would they get away with it? Would a believer in Christ get away with rattling on about racialism? I suspect not. I suspect they know not what they do.
I expect you're absolutely right. I expect that we would fairly well be crucified, and rightfully so.
Really?
Oh, I think
You think all racialists should be crucified?
I think the world would surely crucify us.
Well, I wouldn't doubt that. If I were a racialist or something, anti-racist just love a subhuman racialist.
Absolutely.
Isn't that irony?
Mm-hmm.
They love to hate a subhuman racialist.
That's the
I
truth.
guess if one is a racialist in one way, one is subhuman, but if one is racialist in another way, one is noble, I guess. Just thinking out loud, sorry.
Now, I'll tell you something, too, that I found. Well, I guess I shouldn't find this odd, but a lot of this stuff is buried so deep that you can't find this stuff, and you can't find articles on this stuff many times unless you pay for them. I was trying to pull up some of the scholarly works. This is one of the scholarly works I found on Darwin's work. But believe it or not, I was able to find it at some scholarly work at two different sites based on Darwin's work. And believe it or not, they wanted anywhere from like 50, 75, 80, 100, $120 to get some of these scholarly works that confess the type of racism that Darwin promoted and go into its ramifications. These are actually, some of these are peer-reviewed works.
Do you believe that the anti-racist are the real bigots?
I believe that's very true. I believe that
irony, isn't it?
Most of the people that you hear crying racist today are in fact the racists.
Are the bigots?
Yes, they certainly are.
They subscribe to racialism as if there are more than one human race, and then they go around attacking other racialists who might even have a slip of the tongue and act like they're superior in any way at any time. Wow,
Yeah.
How about them apples?
Yeah, that's really crazy. That is indeed.
It's worse than crazy. Yes. It's dark.
I'm going to... this right here is one of the articles that I was able to find. It's from the Philosophy for the Many, The Dark Side of Darwinism. and they go into the descent of man. Now, when people talk about the racism of Darwin, most of Darwin's apologists will tell you, well, Darwin was not a racist. There's not a racist thing in the origin of species. But the very name of the book, The Preservation of the Favored Races, should tell people differently. And though he did try to avoid the racial aspects of evolution in the Origin of Species book, he goes so deeply into it in the Descent of Man. There is no doubt that this man was a white supremacist and a hater of all the other races. He thought that they were diluting the human blood and keeping us from progressing, keeping us from evolving, holding us back.
What's the difference between a white supremacist and a yellow superiorist?
Well,
is there any difference between a superiorist and a supremacist?
I guess they're both pretty similar. They're about the same
one thing. One color or non-color, one person of non-color is inferior to another person of non-color.
Exactly.
Isn't that irony abound?
It is rather ironic.
Can't they just wait? Can't a yellow superiorist just somehow think that there's two racists without thinking that they are one superior or supreme or supreme? Can they get like kind of like separate but equal?
There's I do remember that separate but equal policy back in the 60s, when they were trying to desegregate schools and neighborhoods. And
what do you do with the high yellow rascals? They're human. They're not subhuman.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm a low red rascal. What do you do with the low reds, or the red? I'm a low red bone. Yeah. I mean, what do you do? How do you separate them out?
Yeah.
What, by their non-color, by their different race? What can you do? God, the conundrums.
It is a conundrum.
It is, not to me.
Well, in this particular work here, where they're exposing the racism of social Darwinism, and his book, The Descent of Man, he says something here that I found very interesting, which is something I touched on a moment ago when I was talking about how the evolutionists will refer to his book, The Origin of Species, and say, well, there's nothing racist in there at all. And then they try to defend even the very title, The Preservation of the Favored Races. And they say, well, you really have to consider the mindset of the day. Well, that doesn't matter. Racism is racism. But he says something here in this particular article that I found really interesting. He says that he noticed something peculiar. Darwin's defenders most often cited his abolitionist identity. Notes from his diaries or quotes from people who knew Darwin. His accusers, on the other hand, often directly cited texts from The Descent of Man, conclusions drawn from the authorial approach to the question, in which defenders focused on proving that Darwin himself was not a racist, starkly contradicted conclusions drawn from the approach of consulting Darwin's text itself. In other words, still today, there are people who staunchly defend Darwin as a non-racist, a non-bigot, but this is in stark contradiction to the very text of of his own books.
So clearly, Darwin apparently was a racialist.
Yes, he was definitely a racialist.
Okay, and plausibly, he also was a racist or someone who believed that their racial racial color or group was guiltless or guilty or better or superior.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he was, and yep, apparently he was divulging into bigotry there, diving into bigotry, not just racialism, but into racism. Oh,
Yeah, he was swimming, literally swimming in white supremacy.
how about white guiltlessness? Was he swimming in that?
Well, yeah, he was definitely guiltless.
Oh, you've heard of white guilt, I take it.
Yes, yes.
Yes. Well, there's some that say there's a phenomena that is lurking among us, known as person of non-color guiltlessness. Yeah,
Well,
person of non-color guiltlessness. Some insist that all people of non-color are guilty. Others propose that any person of any color, shade, hue, hybrid, are guiltless.
I'm of the mindset that only the guilty are guilty.
I hear you. I hear you. Well, damn, I hate to be guilty of being a low red, by birth. Gee whiz, somebody come along, you're guilty, you're just entitled. You cannot say this or say that. You cannot celebrate being a low red. Oh, hell no. If you celebrate being a low red, you are guilty of white guiltlessness, which does not exist.
Yes, but
anyway,
the government is doing everything it can, though, to keep bitterness and hostility between.
Oh, you talking critical race theory?
Well, that's just one thing. Yeah.
I've heard of that.
CRT is one thing, and they're pounding it away in the
racism in the name of racism.
Exactly.
Apples.
Yes. God. So now it's just racism going the other way. That's all it is.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that. Reversed racism.
Yes.
Yes, reversed racialism.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's still racism. It's just, anytime you put a scale on one side, a weight on one side of a scale and a weight on the other side, it's going to go back and forth. But, the left is pushing this. I believe that the government itself wants the people divided so that we fight amongst ourselves rather than against the real enemy, who are the dark forces within the governments around the world. That's my personal opinion.
I heard one rascal call another rascal racialist. And the other rascal said, I can't be a racialist. I'm part American Indian.
Yes. Yes.
As if it is impossible for someone of non-color or maybe high red or high yellow or whatever to be a racialist. Racist racialist. It was so wondrous to hear those.
I've also heard it said that it's impossible to be racist against whites because we're just getting what we deserved.
Is one racial group or racialist disentitled, whereas another one is entitled?
That's pretty much it.
You've got to bend the knee, huh?
Yeah.
Is that how that works?
Yeah.
Oh, sounds like racism to me.
Yeah, you can find.
And I don't mean reverse racism either. I mean straightforward.
Absolutely.
God, irony abounds.
You can find.
And these evolutionist-minded rascals are championing that Darwin was no racialist nor racist.
That's right. That's
right.
Oh
my God! Why would they do that? They must not. They must not subscribe to anti-racist racialism.
Well, you see, on one hand, they're woke,
Oh, yeah, I've heard about that. Yeah.
On one hand, they're woke, but on the other hand, they have all these racist comments by somebody that they have 100%. They got more faith in Darwin than we do in God in many cases.
Well, I'm sure they consider them anti-racist, though.
Yes.
Yeah, they just love it. They love anti-racism, and they love hating on what they are against. They
That's
just love
right.
it.
That's right.
And it feels so noble. It seems so true.
Inclusion at any cost, except for
Oh,
those who
bigotry, I know,
disagree.
man. Hell no, buddy.
Yeah.
Affirmative action. We're going to affirmative action your ass out of the neighborhood. Yeah, I've heard it. Yeah. Run you out.
Yeah. Well, this fellow goes on to say, I'm familiar with Darwin's theories, but I had never actually read his books. Now, that's what I'm going to suggest to everybody listening. Read his books. Read them for yourself to see where they lead. He goes on to say, I suspect the same is true for most people here. However, I found that to determine whether or not Darwin's theories are racist, the text of the books is revealing and conclusive. Information outside the text of The Descent of Man can help us understand the man behind the pen, but it does nothing to soften the brutal racism and white supremacism
Oh, my God.
found in the text of his theory. And he goes on to say, although best known for On the Origin of Species, Darwin does not address human evolution and race until his 1871 book, The Descent of Man, in which Darwin applies his theory of natural selection to humans and introduces the idea of sexual selection. In other words, you can recall the theories and the practices of Hitler and Nazi Germany, where they were breeding the best of their white children with the best of their white children. And they were actually sterilizing people of other races that weren't going to bring forth the perfect Aryan race. They were actually sterilizing this. This was one of the things that was championed not just by Darwin, but then by Darwin's successor, the female successor, Margaret Sanger,
Yeah.
and then on just a decade or two later to Hitler.
Have you ever bred children? I have 3, 2 boys and a girl.
I certainly have, yes.
Oh, yeah, okay. But these rascals were breeding other people's children. Is that how that works?
They were taking, like, for instance, they would set up summer camps, and they would pick the best looking white girls with blonde hair and blue eyes, and then the best looking white boys that were strong, tall, white haired, blue eyed, and
people of non-color, you mean?
yes, and they would encourage them to get together.
Okay. And breed.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh.
And
breeding people of non-color, is that legal?
sounds like a heck of a farm.
It does, doesn't it? Is there any human of non-color?
Yeah, not that
I mean, have you ever met a human of non-color?
No, that would be pretty well transparent, wouldn't it?
Now, I've heard that's what I'm thinking. I've heard of people of color, and I've heard of people of non-color, but I don't think I've ever beheld a human of non-color.
I don't think I have either. So
these evolutionist-minded rascals around here are going around promoting anti-racism in the name of science. Oh my gosh.
Well,
or are they just promoting racialism?
Well, any kind of. Well, listen to this. I mean, this is going to help clarify. He says he's talking about the idea of sexual selection. In other words, breeding the Aryan race, the favored race. Darwin talks about it. Margaret Sanger talked about it. Margaret Sanger she was real big in birth control, as a matter of fact, and she set up birth control clinics all around the United States in the poor sections, the black sections, the Hispanic sections. You could go everywhere for birth control if you were not of the favored race. Now, we're going to touch more on that in a moment, but check this out. He's talking about it in the book of The Descent of Man. He said this is where his supremacism is revealed. Over the course of the book, Darwin describes Australians, Mongolians, Africans, Indians, South Americans, Polynesians, and even Eskimos as quote-unquote savages.
How about Sweden's?
Yeah, same thing, pretty much. And he applied this morally too. He applied this morally. He applied it to intellect. He said that these savage races were not capable of the moral clarity that we are, or for the mental clarity that Caucasians are capable of. He literally, and I'll show you this in a little bit.
Well, now wait, Caucasian, is that code for people of non-color?
Yes, whites.
Yeah,
the favored race, blonde-haired, blue eyes, light skin.
People of non-color, gotcha.
Yes. So it becomes clear that he considers every population that is not white and European to be savage. The word savage is disdainful, and Darwin constantly elevates white Europeans above the quote-unquote savages. Darwin explains, yes, Darwin explains that the highest races and the lowest savages differ in moral disposition.
Where do gingers fit into that? Are gingers in there anywhere?
They'd be a savage race.
Oh man.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
How about Italians? Italians. So they
savage. I'm afraid.
God.
Yeah.
And this is in the name of science?
Absolutely. This is where evolution has led us. The Caucasian race is the most favored race, evolutionarily speaking.
Not gingers.
We are the most evolved race as far as our ability to think, our intellect, our moral disposition, and everything that makes a human a human. The Caucasian is the most favored race. Everybody else is less evolved. And
how about the mulattoes?
Yeah, well, they would, of course, be degrading the pure race, the purest, most
the mulattoes.
advanced. Yes.
Yep. Oh, my God.
The idea that white people are more intelligent and moral persists throughout his books. At one point, Darwin says that savages have low morality, insufficient powers of reasoning. These are quotes now.
Did he have receipts for that? Scientific receipts for those theories?
I guess this was...
I don't know, SAT test scores or something.
I think these are things that he observed on the island when he was observing finches' beaks.
I heard IQ tests were biased anyway, so I guess they don't count.
The idea that white people are more intelligent and moral persists throughout, and he says that the savages have quote-unquote low morality, quote-unquote insufficient powers of reasoning, quote-unquote weak power of self-command. And those are all quotes on page 97 of his book. Darwin's specific consideration of intellectual capacities is especially alarming. He begins with animals. No one supposes that one of the lower animals reflects whence he comes or whither he goes. In other words, if you're of a savage race, you can't even contemplate on where you've been and where you're going. You can't contemplate what is life or what is death and so forth. His remarks soon expand to humans. How little can the hard-worked wife of a degraded Australian savage who uses hardly any abstract words and cannot count above 4, exert her self-consciousness or reflect on the nature of her own existence. Now there he's just talking about Australians, and he thought of blacks and browns and yellows as lower than
I
Australians.
thought the Arabs invented algebra.
Yes. As a matter of fact, I believe you're right.
Or was that God? I can't remember.
So he also writes, quote, Australians are incapable of complex thought, unquote. So,
but they make a nice boomerang.
Yes, they do make a great boomerang and wonderful shrimp on the barbie. So I'm going to bring up something else here for you now. Let me go back to Margaret Sanger.
Some say rednecks are subhuman. I don't believe them. Corn huskers, rednecks, But that's right. Some people of non-color are worthy of disentitlement. I forgot, allegedly. And, so one can ethnically slur some, but not others, are entitled to go unslurred at all times and all ways. There'll be no slip of the tongues. Yes, I'm with you.
Yeah. I want to bring up a little bit about Margaret Sanger now.
She was into eugenics, wasn't she?
Yes, she was. Margaret
was killing subhumans.
Yes.
God, keep her away from me. I'm part red and part black, and oh my God.
Yeah, Margaret Sanger took social Darwinism and the descent of man, and man, she ran with that ball, brother. This is okay. There was recently there was a abortion clinic that was named after Margaret Sanger, and they went so far as to remove her name from the abortion clinic because of her racism. This is the recent article entitled "Margaret Sanger, Birth Control Successful Revolutionary, Glorified and Admitted Racist of the same school of thought as Adolf Hitler." It is very careless of the American Journal of Public Health to allow such articles to be printed. Margaret Sanger's slogans were, quote, birth control, to create a race of thoroughbreds, unquote.
Oh my God. So she wasn't just an anti-racist. She was a eugenicist.
Absolutely.
My God. So she was against some alleged races and also so much against them that she wanted to exterminate them or slaughter them or abort them or
exactly
euphemize. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. How about them apples? All in the name of science, huh?
Yeah. Just like Darwin's quote when we first began. Yeah, just like Darwin's quote when we first began, where he said, the time is coming and it's very soon, where the civilized races will begin to exterminate and replace the savage races.
Well, I guess if one doesn't believe in God, science is at least something to believe in, I guess.
Yeah.
And worship.
Another Margaret Sanger slogan was, quote, more children from the fit, less from the unfit. That is the chief aim of birth control, unquote. So there you have it from her own mouth. The chief aim of birth control, regardless of the rhetoric that we hear today, the chief aim of birth control is not equal rights for women. It is more children from the fit and less from the unfit. And where do the birth control clinics flourish most? In what neighborhoods? What Darwin and Margaret Sanger would have referred to as the savage races, the neighborhoods of the savage races.
Are most peeps, in your experience, are most peeps who believe in scientific evolution, are they believers, agnostic, unbelievers, or atheist? Those who believe in scientific evolution, are they believers in our Lord Jesus Christ? Are they unbelievers in our Lord Jesus Christ? Are they agnostic about God, believing God, or are they atheist? What are most evolutionists in
Uh,
your experience, Eric?
I would say most of them are atheist and agnostic, although we do have a very large percentage of Catholics, for instance,
Mhm.
that are evolutionist.
Okay, so some Catholics believe God and are believers in the Lord Jesus Christ, and also believe in evolution.
Yeah, some,
I gotcha.
yeah.
Thank you.
But that's because they're following the Pope. Because
Is
the Pope,
the Pope a eugenicist, evolutionist? Does he worship science or?
well, the funny thing is, he is an evolutionist, and he does support Planned Parenthood, which supports eugenics.
Is the Pope an unbeliever or a believer or an agnostic or an atheist?
I would say he's an unbeliever. I would say he may even be Satanist.
Good.
That's my personal opinion.
That's way past the atheist column, I guess.
Yes.
Yes.
I don't think he's atheist at all.
I see.
I do think he is anti-Christian.
Well, that's your discernment. If a duck quacks like a duck, it might be a duck. I don't know. Might not be, but it might be.
Yeah, the one of the new worship buildings, the newer worship buildings that they worship in for the last several years now, is designed like a snake, the head of a snake from the inside. I find that extremely thought-provoking.
Yeah. An account in Genesis, I think it was, Moses put a snake on a pole, a brass snake or something.
Yes, he did.
Yes. I wonder if that's the snake that they symbolically built that building to, or if it was a snake like the snake in the Garden of Eden. A snake, huh? That's suspicious.
It's very suspicious.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I was talking about the link, how Sanger was a intermediary. You went to talk about intermediate fossils. Well, Sanger was an intermediate between Darwin and Hitler. Darwin came out in the late 1860s and 70s with his stuff. Margaret Sanger came out in the early 1900s with hers. And she lived on into Hitler's reign. But check this out. It says she advocated, talking about Margaret Sanger, she advocated giving genetically inferior groups in our population their choice of segregation or sterilization. Sanger invited Hitler's top racial advisor, Eugen Fischer, to lecture in the United States, while Lothrop Stoddard, one of Sanger's advisors, went to Germany to meet Hitler. Stoddard, while associated with Sanger, wrote a racist book entitled The Rising Tide of Color Against White World Supremacy. Now, this is what Darwin, Margaret Sanger, and Hitler were all tied up in. Sanger.
How about female circumcision? Were they into that?
Not that I know of.
For genetically inferior races.
They were definitely into sterilization.
Yes. God, terrible.
Yes. Sanger published articles in her magazine by Ernst Rudin, an infamous Nazi race specialist. A direct quote from Margaret Sanger goes, "The most successful educational approach to the Negro is through a religious appeal. In other words, indoctrinate them religiously, but do not educate them. We do not want word to go out that we want to exterminate the Negro population.
So only people of non-color could breed.
That's what they were wanting.
Oh my God.
And this is still part of her quote. We do not want word to go out. Now, this comes directly from Darwin to Sanger to Hitler.
Okay, are there any people in our societies that don't want people of non-color to breed?
Well, I think that's rampant.
Oh my God, it's still around.
Yeah, and we'll see this in just a few moments here too. That's a very good question. We do not want word to go out that we want to exterminate the Negro population. And the minister is the man who can straighten out that idea if it ever occurs to any of the more rebellious members. In other words, we've got to train our white clergy to sidetrack the Negro population.
So these evolutionists wanted to subjugate ministers of the Lord.
Yes, sir.
To do their bidding against people of non-color or people of certain color or whatever it is that they were championing on sterilizing. They wanted to use ministers.
Yes.
To promote their eugenics, their bigoted eugenics.
That's exactly right.
Oh my God.
Now, Margaret Sanger was also a powerful anti-Semite who actively participated in the immigration restrictions keeping Jews out of the United States. Now, this is when they were being oppressed by Hitler, and they were trying to flee Germany and come, in many cases, to the United States to flee Hitler.
I presume that Margaret didn't subscribe to Anglo-Israeli perspective, I guess.
No, she did not.
No, she didn't. She probably had no idea what the stone of scone was. Poor thing.
I bet you're right.
Yeah.
But she did her best in influencing the immigration restrictions to keep Jews out of the United States as they were trying to flee Germany.
It sounds like Margaret might have believed in godlessness.
Yeah, well, you
think
that's definitely a possibility.
I mean, she not only believed in science, but she believed in godlessness. Ugh, I guess.
Yeah. Now, there's a response to this article by somebody who's saying that if you're going to label Margaret Sanger an admitted racist, then you're not taking into consideration the mindset of the day. He does admit that she said all this stuff. He does admit that she was into eugenics. He does admit she wanted to wipe out the quote-unquote savage races and promote the favored Caucasian race. He admits to all this, but he says, but you can't pay any attention to that because that's how a lot of people felt back then.
Oh, so Margaret gets a pass. Margaret and her descendants of non-color get a pass for racism because they're people of non-color.
Yes.
Oh.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, here's something that's really interesting. You asked a question a little bit earlier, Tommy, that is a wonderful question. Does this carry on today? Do we have or do we have bigotry today that's being displayed against the races, against the so-called quote-unquote savage races, and promoting the preservation of the quote-unquote favored race of Caucasians? Yes, as a matter of fact, we do. This right here that I'm showing is actually a peer-reviewed work now. This comes from a peer-reviewed magazine. The work has been peer-reviewed.
Are the anti-homophobics, are they taking up anti-racist racialism too? Oh my God.
Well, this is concerning the number of abortions in the United States and where they mostly belong to. Now, look at this. This is part of the same article. Now, the blacks in America make up 13% of the of the population. Whites make up a much greater percentage of the population, of course. Blacks being only 13% of the population, roughly, make up 4 times. They have 4 times the amount of abortions that whites have. 4 times the abortions. Now, the interesting thing here is most of the abortion clinics that you can go to now are either in the very poor neighborhoods, or most of them are in the Black and Hispanic neighborhoods. The vast majority of them, the vast majority of people that are encouraged to get an abortion today, whether it be in school, from their guidance counselors, teachers, what have you, most of the people that are advised to get an abortion are people of color, black, brown people, black people, brown people. And black people alone, this is not taking in brown races, Hispanic races, or anybody else, just among the black people alone. They have 4 times the amount of abortions.
Oh my God.
That white people have.
And some people say that political science is not religious.
Yes, exactly.
How about them apples?
Now then, when you go and add the Hispanic race, it comes to roughly the same thing. It's like 3 to 1 or 4, almost 4 to 1, but I think it's closer to 3 to 1. So we can see that people of the so-called quote-unquote savage races are the ones today. You can go to their neighborhoods and you can find all the abortion clinics, and these are the people who are being advised to have abortions.
In the name of science.
In the name of science. And
evolution.
Exactly.
And eugenics.
And most of the whites who are being advised to get an abortion make up the lower of the lower class of whites.
I thought people of non-color didn't exist. Oh, I mean, yeah, the whites, yeah.
Yes. So, there you have it. It's very, there's just, in my opinion, eugenics is alive and well today.
Why would a godless person promote eugenics?
That's a very good question. It leaves
because they're godless. Maybe science. They believe in science, or God, or
a lot of people would have said that Hitler was godless, but Hitler was very heavily involved in the occult practices. So were the SS. All of his SS officers.
Was he anti-godless?
They would be more along the lines of
anti-godly. No. Was he anti-God? Was he an anti-theist?
I guess you could say anti-God.
I'm with you.
He was quite a dabbler. It was a standard. His SS officers had to be involved in the occult.
Was he anti-Christ?
As in Antichrist, yes.
Oh, okay.
So when you look at that, then you look at Darwin. Darwin was at one time some kind of a priest. He was he went to a theological seminary. He was training to be a priest, and he left it to write The Origin of Species and the Descent of Man, which is calling on the death of most of mankind when it comes right down to it.
How about Comrade Director Stalin?
Yeah.
Was he a eugenicist?
Stalin was a eugenicist.
Was he an atheist?
I believe he was. He's said to be an atheist, but
Was he Mongolian?
he may have been. I'm not sure what race he was.
Right.
I do have my doubts.
Was he a scientist?
Nobody seemed to be a what do you call it when somebody
Did he believe in the religion of scientism?
yes, scientism. There you go. Scientism.
Oh.
He was definitely into scientism. Now, I've got my doubts about his atheism. I'll accept it. I'll repeat that he's an atheist because that's what he claimed. But I have my doubts. It seems to me that all of these people were anti-religious, not necessarily anti-religious, but anti-Christian, anti-Christ, and
Wicked.
very wicked.
Extreme wicked. Not just naughty, not wicked light, but extremely wicked.
And bent on destruction, that's for sure.
Some people say extreme wickedness doesn't exist, but others say it might be around. I don't know. But anyway.
I see a comment here. All white supremacist groups are Christian groups. Well,
how about them apples?
Yeah, if you want to count Darwin as
how about black supremacist groups?
Yeah.
Are those Christian groups too? How about red bone supremacist groups or Nipponese supremacist group? How about all humans superiorist?
Yeah,
are Christian? Is that what you're saying? That sounds like shallow bigotry.
Boax here.
That sounds like a bunch of anti-racist horse poop.
Yeah, Boax here in the
name of science and political science. Yes, in the name of political science.
Yeah, Boax here is in the comment section.
Or religion.
She believes she has actually swallowed the Kool-Aid. She believes the KKK was based on religion. She doesn't know, in fact, that the KKK was based on these people that were into scientism. Albert Pike was one of the people who helped develop the KKK. Albert Pike was a high-level Mason. He had 33rd degree. And he was also an evolutionist. He rubbed shoulders with the devilish people of his day. And when he wrote extensively, he's one of the most extensive and prolific Masonic writers of all time. Him and Carol Quigley are two of them. Albert Pike wrote the Morals and Dogma book that was handed out to every new Masonic member for probably 100 years. And he states in his book, Morals and Dogma, that Lucifer is the one that sheds his light on mankind, and that one day we need to stamp out religion as we know it and worship the glorious light of Lucifer, as he puts it, quote unquote. And this was a man that followed evolution, Darwinism, eugenics, and he was involved in the creation of the KKK.
Are all racial egalitarians Luciferian?
A lot of them.
Are all racial supremacist Luciferian?
Well, they certainly practice Luciferian doctrine.
My gosh.
The KKK has lived on then, and Good News Gospel has this right too. KKK has been embraced then by the Democratic Party.
Are any Christians Luciferian?
Well, people that pretend to be Christian.
Okay, but a
Luciferian.
real Christian couldn't be ensnared or entangled in Luciferianism.
Not a real one, no.
Okay.
Darwin is a good example of this.
Could a real Christian be entangled in atheism?
I don't believe so. No.
How about could a real Christian be entangled in agnosticism?
I don't believe so, no.
Could a real Christian be entangled in unbelief?
I don't believe so. It's we can have our doubts at times.
Right. Okay. So a real Christian can be entangled in doubt.
Yes.
Okay, that seems fair.
But unbelief, no. At that point, they become an unbeliever.
Okay.
I label believers as Christians. Christians, if somebody is going to label themselves as a Christian, I ask them, well, are you a believer? You know?
Do you believe God?
Yes, exactly.
Not believe in God. Do you believe God?
Exactly.
Gotcha.
I've read people posting all over the place on Facebook or talking on YouTube and talking about how they are Christian, but they don't believe that Christ died for our sins. And I've told them blatantly, well, then you're not a Christian. You can call yourself a Christian if you like, but you are not a Christian.
Well, whenever somebody says, I don't believe something, I don't believe something, I don't believe something, that's suspicious.
Yes.
I don't believe it. What does that mean to don't believe it? I don't believe. I don't believe. I don't, but they keep repeating it as if they're trying to convince themselves.
Yep. I certainly agree, brother.
I mean, half of them, if they really didn't believe it, they wouldn't bother saying they don't believe it.
Yeah.
They'd be declaring something else or playing golf or, but no, you got to go around and say, I don't believe it. I don't. Anyway, sorry to be distracted. Yeah.
That's right. But yeah, you're going to find that people that believe in hate. Now, don't get me wrong. There are people among every religion, I believe, that hate, and that is not good. But you're going to have people of every religion espouse all kinds of things.
Some people consider it holy to hate.
Yes, they do.
It's called holy hatred.
Yes.
Yes, it's godliness to holy hate. Yes.
Yeah.
Let's hate them, themism. Let's hate them race or them people of non-color, or let's hate on them anti-racist. I mean, racialist. Let's hate them. It's holy to hate. Yeah, I've heard about that. Holy hatred, allegedly.
Yes. But
how about hating evil? Is that understandable?
That's understandable.
Okay, how about hating wickedness?
We can definitely hate evil.
Okay. How about hating the sin, but avoid hating the sinner? Does that seem like good mental hygiene?
Yes, it does.
It does, doesn't it?
Gracious. It's just like we love the people that we have family members, we have mothers, we have fathers, we have children, we have spouses, and everybody at some point disappoints somebody in their family, somebody that loves them. And does that mean that they hate us or that we should hate them? No.
I don't know why why Dad hated the mailman. I loved him, but anyway, just joking.
Yeah. Vincent wants to know what silliness are we discussing tonight? We're discussing the blatant racism of Charles Darwin.
And we're also discussing anti-racism, the religion of anti-racism. Also, we're discussing that too. Why? You want in on it?
You're welcome to join. The link is up top.
You can call it silliness if you must, or if you do, it's okay.
Yeah. If you think it's silly to stand against racism, that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, some anti-racists specialize in it.
Yes.
Standing against racism. Stamp it out. Find people of non-color who are racist by default and stamp it out. Entitle all the disentitled based on history. Yes, yes, all based on some subjective characterization of a human race, of one human race.
Yes.
Almost religiously.
But whereas Darwin was making a call to stamp out the savage races so that the favored Caucasian race could retain its purity and evolve further. And whereas Margaret Sanger took up that same call and associated with Hitler, who also made this same call. And though this was passed down through Planned Parenthood to where now the great majority of people who are being euthanized or eugenicized or wiped out, stricken from the human race, as Charles Darwin called for, these are the blacks. These are the Hispanics.
Is evolution racist by default?
Of course it is.
Oh my God, what will the anti-racist do?
Yes,
abandon evolution?
The Caucasian race is the most advanced, most evolved, most favored race on Earth, according to
who? The anti-racist?
That says Charles Darwin, Margaret Sanger, and Adolf Hitler.
The anti-racists were running around saying, "You guys have had privilege. You people of non-color have had privilege. Therefore, now you're just entitled based on your race of non-color."
You see, I want to show this right here.
All in the name of evolution.
Here's somebody that has swallowed the Kool-Aid. Vincent Price comments and says, so because racism was common back then, and even though Darwin was progressive and anti-slavery, you think an ad hom is a good argument against evolution. No, I think you're an idiot, Vincent, and underinformed. I think that you don't have the slightest clue where Darwin stood because you have not read his work.
Well, Vincent does have a point that the truthfulness or falseness of evolution theory does not rest on the racialism of Margaret Sanger or Darwin. It doesn't rest on the truthfulness or falseness of evolution theory stands apart from any of its progenitors, or
yes,
it does. But so ad hom, but still may it be noted that is evolutionary theory racist?
Of course it is racist.
Well, it is apart from its progenitors or inventors or theorists. It's either racist or it ain't.
You see, he's
egalitarian.
He's woke, so he doesn't know that Darwin said the Negroes were lower than animals. He's woke so that he doesn't know that all these things.
Well, if that's all he's got is woke, how sad. All he's got is woke scientism.
Yeah, that's it. Dude,
how sad. I hear God is gracious, very gracious, and rich in mercy to all who call upon him. And yet some woke scientismist won't reach out or call out. They sit in their sad state of wokeism, scientific-y wokeism, and won't call out. Is that sad?
Yes.
All they can do is insist that religion doesn't exist, or insist that only science is worth worshiping, or insist that evolutionary scientific theory is the truth. They don't have any God, or they say, I don't believe in God, or I don't, there is no God. There can't be a God. No, no, no. Very sad. Very
Yeah.
sad. And now they're going to come stamping out, pulling some kind of eugenics in the name of science, based on some subjective racism or racialism or anti-racialism, anti-religiousism, anti-theism, anti-godism, anti-Christism. Oh my God, it gets thick fast, don't it?
Yep. Yep. I'm going to pull up a quote here from Darwin that is just incredible. Bear with me just a second here. This is unbelievable. And yet people want to take up for him.
Well, I've heard that some racists are entitled to be racist, whereas others are not. Some are disentitled.
Yep.
Yeah, you cannot be a racialist if you're a person of a certain color or non-color. So if you're a high yellow or a person of non-color, then you can't be a racialist. You can't even act like it. You can't even imply it. And not only that, you're not going to get the good jobs. No, you're not going to get those. No, we are affirmatively acting against some for others. Yes. And you merit sterilization, eugenicization, and what else? And segregation. If you won't submit to those aforementioned. Yeah, wow. How about them apples? I think they're against what they know not. That's what I think. They don't know what they're fighting against.
Yeah, and they don't know what they're taking up for either.
I hope.
They have no idea. See, they haven't actually read what he said. Listen to this. Now,
why would they want to? It would disturb their religion.
Yeah.
I mean, political science. Yeah. I mean, if one ain't got a God, what else is there but political science? You know, that's all a man's got. It's all a man's got.
Check this out.
I mean, I ain't simping for anybody. And I mean, I don't mean I ain't white knighting nobody, but God, mercy.
Man is descended from some lowly, organized form, I regret to think, be highly distasteful to many. But there can hardly be a doubt that we are descended from barbarians. Now, these barbarians are the savage races that he was talking about, blacks. Now, think about this, too. Tommy, where do evolutionists say we began, mankind began?
I heard a lightning strike or some muck pool or panspermia, but that doesn't get to the root of it. Where does life begin?
Well, what they say, though, when it comes to mankind, the
I guess mankind began with gorillas. No, mankind began with dolphins. No, amoebas. Amoebas.
Well, they say we had some kind of a common ancestor with the chimp, and then they go on to say that the first primitive men were black. These were people of color. And then the other races began to develop, the other races of color, and that the earliest, most primitive men were black.
What? Blue gum?
And then later,
red or blue gum. But go ahead.
Then we later evolved into the Caucasian, and the Caucasian is the crowning glory of mankind, according to the evolutionists. We are the superior race. We are the most favored race that Darwin referred to. Darwin himself calls the most favored race, the civilized race, the Caucasians.
So am I to understand that the ancestors of people of non-color were chimps?
Chimp-like animals, yes.
And then what?
Then they later evolved. Then these,
And then who came next after chimps? People of color?
yes. After
What are we talking? Are we talking Mongolians or Africans or Australians?
Africans.
Africans.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Is that where the Garden of Eden was in Africa?
Well, evidently they think so.
I guess. Go ahead. Uh-huh.
So, and then, eventually we evolved into the white race. And we are now according to Darwin and Margaret Sanger and Adolf Hitler, the most favored race, the most evolved race. We are the Caucasian race, the Aryan race. Now, he goes on to say...
And you've got people of color championing that?
Yes, you do.
Oh, my God.
Like I said, most of these people have never read this stuff.
Well, I thought all people were people of color, but anyway, go ahead.
That's the problem that you have with millennials and internet atheists. They think they know something, but they've never read this work. They don't know what they're judging. They don't know what they're supporting. And if they ever did take up the challenge and actually read this stuff, if they had any conscience at all, they would actually rise up against it. But that's only if they have a conscience.
I was a teenage millennial. Don't tell anybody.
Yeah. So he goes on to say there, listen to this. He's talking about the blacks now. These men were absolutely naked and bedaubed with paint. Their long hair was tangled, their mouths frothed with excitement, and their expression was wild, startled, and distrustful. They possessed hardly any arts, and like wild animals, lived on what they could catch. They had no government. They were merciless to everyone not of their own tribe. He who has seen a savage in his own native land will not feel shame if forced to acknowledge that the blood of some humble creature flows through his veins. Flows through whose veins? He's talking about the blood of some lowly animal flowing through the bloodstream of the blacks, the savage races, the monkeys. He goes on to say, for my own part, I would as soon be descended from that heroic little monkey who braved his dreaded enemy in order to save the life of his keeper, or from the old baboon who, descending from the mountains, carried away in triumph his young comrade from a crowd of astonished dogs, as from a savage who delights to torture his enemies. In other words, Darwin here is saying, all the blacks that I've seen were from these primitive tribes, and you could tell that they were made from monkeys, but I would rather be descended from the monkey itself than from a black person. That's exactly what Darwin is saying here.
Oh, my God.
He esteems a monkey above blacks. He would rather be descended from the monkey than from the black. And these people over here talk about, want to take up for Darwin. They don't know what they're talking about. You know, you people need an education.
Was your daddy a subhuman?
My daddy?
Yeah.
My daddy was a
human.
A human being. Yep.
Yes. Oh, okay. Cool.
And Vincent Price here says, nobody in the last 100 years thinks any extant species is more evolved than any other. Well, you know, there again, you're just showing your ignorance, kid.
Oh, that must be a speciesist.
Yeah. We just read
that people of non-color or color are a different species than gingers.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, see, what Vincent's coming in here thinking he knows something. We had a debate where he got absolutely everything he said wrong. Absolutely everything. It was ridiculous.
Well, at least he was a tryhard, huh?
Yes. But then to come in here and say this, you see, he wasn't here when we read Darwin's remarks and then Margaret Sanger's remarks. Margaret Sanger lived within the last 100 years. Adolf Hitler lived within the last 100 years. And all of these abortion clinics that you're finding in the low-income neighborhoods, whose hero was Margaret Sanger. You probably don't even know who Margaret Sanger is, Vincent. You
Well,
probably have no idea who Margaret Sanger was.
Eric, I must take leave, but thank you for your hospitality.
And thank you, Tommy.
Thank you, and thank all the listeners. I hope it was amusing, at least amusing, and maybe edifying. Thank you.
God bless you, my friend.
God bless you
Thank
too,
you for
Eric.
joining me, Tommy.
In the name of our Lord Jesus. Bye now.
And good night, brother. And so there you have it. I want to thank brother Tommy for dropping in, and I want to thank brother Bill for dropping in. And I hope that you have been startled. I truly do, by what you've seen and heard today. I hope that you've been startled to see what these evolutionists really thought, and that we see it carried out today, in that what Margaret Sanger, what Darwin prophesied is coming to pass. That very soon, the civilized Caucasian race would wipe out, exterminate, and replace the savage races. And how that was echoed by Margaret Sanger. Margaret Sanger, the mother of Planned Parenthood, who was also not just in league with Charles Darwin and a follower of Darwin, social Darwinism, but in league with Hitler himself. And they were exchanging policies back and forth. You don't know who Margaret Sanger was, kid. That's what I'm talking about. If you had any common sense about you, Vincent, we're talking about that. A promoter of birth control. Birth control for whom? To wipe out the blacks by her own words and people of color. And by her own words, help preserve the Aryan, the most favored, the Caucasian race. As a matter of fact, you might be embarrassed to know, Vincent, that one of her Planned Parenthood birth control centers just kicked her name off the bulletin board because of her racist remarks. They could no longer stand for that. You also might be interested in knowing, I doubt this would make any difference to you at all, Vincent, seeing how you want to take up for such practices. It probably doesn't matter to you that there are 4 times the black population is 13%, and yet they have 4 times the rate of birth control abortion than white women. And then following that is the brown races. So, you probably can't make that connection there, that's what's going on. Birth control is carrying out what Darwin said we needed to do, that we would do, that Margaret Sanger said we will do, and what Hitler went on to practice, exterminating the people of color so that they can preserve and promote racial purity among the Caucasians, the white race. So maybe you can learn something, Vincent. I hope so. And for everybody else, God bless you. Thank you very much for listening. This is Eric, a.k.a. Wolfbitten, and this was controversial, I know. And surprising, I know. And disgusting, I know. But I'm going to advise those of you who don't understand the implication of all this, stop being an internet atheist and learn something. Read this stuff for yourself. Whatever you got to tell yourself, Vincent, whatever you got to tell yourself. If you don't want to learn, that's not on us. You have a great day, buddy. And for everybody else, God bless you. Thank you, Tommy, for joining me. Thank you, Bill, for joining me. Thank you, Norma Jean. Thank you, everybody who was here. We love you all very much. God bless you. Eric, a.k.a. Wolfen. God willing, we'll see you next time. Good night.